Hello, my name is Greta Patrick, and my advocacy presentation is on the implications of e-learning on language acquisition and a program that I have proposed to solve this problem. So the challenge is that e-learning, while it has been proven by recent research to be very beneficial to emergent bilinguals, the problem becomes when you combine e-learning with distance learning due to COVID-19 shutdowns of schools, it becomes a challenge for bilingual students and English language learners to navigate. And that is because many bilingual students fall into another at-risk category. And those can include they might be coming from low-income families. Many emergent bilinguals come from families who do not speak English. They come from homes that have limited access to Wi-Fi or technology in general. And the question then becomes, if you have these students coming from these circumstances, how do we get these critical education enhancing technologies into their hands? And how do we ensure that these students are getting the support they need with these technologies? In other words, how do we ensure that their language acquisition is helped rather than hurt by e-learning? I'm going to start with a review of the literature. A 2015 study from China by Yang and Wu studied the effects of an e-learning program on vocabulary acquisition. So these were students whose L1 was Chinese, and they were using a program that was personalized to the way these students learned. And it used flashcards, it used analogies, it used other strategies to teach them English. And what they found was that that program itself was much more effective than the students who were trying to learn the same words using an online dictionary or a paper dictionary. So that was a big check in the box for e-learning on vocabulary acquisition. That was very positive research coming out of China. Then in 2018, a study by Gonzalez, Carriedo, and Harrell studied teachers' perceptions of e-learning and found that since teachers' perceptions are so important to how e-learning, what the results are of e-learning in the classroom, and so teachers, they found, were generally open to using e-learning. They did not shy away from using it in their classrooms. And teachers actually self-reported that their students were finding it more fun and more engaging to use technology in the classroom. They were always asking, when can we get the computers out? When can we get the iPads out? So it was not only fun for them, it was a motivator. It made them want to learn. Unfortunately, the research did also show some downsides to e-learning or learning by technology. Even in that same study, that 2018 study by Gonzalez, Carriedo, and Harrell found that teachers did admit that access to technology is limited at schools. And this was when they were in the schools themselves. They also found that technology does not support those crucial interpersonal interactions that are so crucial to language acquisition. And this study came from a two-way dual language program. And so they were not only teaching students whose L1 was Spanish how to speak English, they were teaching students whose L1 was English to teach Spanish, and they could not find very many programs to use that were in Spanish. They could not find Spanish material online, and that was a huge problem that I will touch on more later in my presentation. And then the final study that I wanted to touch on comes from 2019 in Turkey by those three researchers here. I am not going to try to pronounce their names, but what they found was basically that a class that was majority online, it was blended format, it had a face-to-face component, was less effective at teaching students a coding language than an all face-to-face. That's that F2F format. They found that the face-to-face F2F format classes were much more effective than even a blended format class, which was mainly online with a face-to-face component. And a statement from the National Association for the Education of Young Children and the Fred Rogers Center for Early Learning in Children's Media summed up the problem very, very well. They said that technology tools can be effective for dual language learners by providing access to a family's home language and culture while supporting English language learning. But with guidance, these various technology tools can be harnessed for learning and development. Without guidance, usage can be inappropriate and or interfere with learning and development. So, how do we solve this problem? What is my proposal? My proposal is we need to get teachers and students to physically interact in order to ensure that the students can access the technologies they need. Teachers should be physically in school in order to learn about new software programs and technologies to help ELLs with distance learning. And why do they need to physically see the students? They need to physically see their students in order to ensure that A, they have technology that they need to learn from home, and B, that they know how to use this technology and adequately learn from it. They're not just giving students resources and saying, use this to learn English. They need to be in the same classroom so that students know what they need to be doing. So my proposal to solve this problem is basically a blended learning format program for emergent bilinguals. Here's how it's going to work. Basically, students must contact, or schools must contact these students. They must contact the families of all their ELL or emergent bilingual students, offering them the option for blended learning. If they opt in, students have the option to opt in or opt out. Families have the option to opt their students in or out. If they opt in, the students will be required to attend school at least one day per week instead of being required to attend school every day like before COVID. They will be required to attend school just one day per week. And this just allows for schools to be able to tailor this program to what works for their own school. Are they going to stagger them? You know, how many students are going to opt in? How many students do they have in their school? How many ELLs do they have in their school? It allows schools the flexibility. If they only are required to bring these students in once per week, then it allows schools a little bit of flexibility in how they're going to implement this program. And this comes with social distancing measures that have been proven to significantly reduce the infection risk. So schools must allow 6 feet between students, and everyone needs to be 6 feet away from the instructor at all times, and everyone has to wear face protection. And I'll hit on this a little bit more later, but all students who opt in have to sign a waiver in order to participate. So, how will this program help? How will this alleviate the problem? First of all, emergent bilinguals will gain access to technology at the school. Emergent bilinguals will be able to get at least one day of learning. One of the issues with distance learning is teachers were not sure if their ELLs were getting even one day per week of learning. They weren't sure that they were getting it at all. So with this, you'll at least get that assurance that at least one day a week they are in school, they are being supported in their second language acquisition, and their education in general. One of the biggest upsides to this program is that it's an open line of communication between the school and the children and their families. It gives them an opportunity to explain their circumstances instead of just guessing, you know, why isn't this child doing their e-learning? It gives them the chance to explain, you know, we don't speak English in my house, so we can't understand what you send home. We don't have any kind of technology in our house. We don't have any kind of internet. I have to babysit my family or my neighbors, and I don't have any time for homeschooling. This will allow the school to at least have that line of communication so that they can brainstorm solutions. And then finally, you know, worst case scenario, it's a perfect opportunity to send home a paper packet for the week, for students who have no other option. And the 1 day per week classes will be a way for those students to demonstrate their learning. They can turn in their learning packets and get new learning packets every week. So it offers options for how to reach these students, and bringing them in will ensure that they will be reached. So how do we know if this program is going to be a success or not? Basically, you'll use very much the same metrics as you would use in 5 day a week school. You'd monitor their attendance. What's your first job as a teacher is to take the attendance, right? That's the way the joke goes. So you monitor their attendance and you follow up much the same way as 5 day a week school. Chronic absenteeism, the district has to follow up, the state has to follow up, all of that. You monitor student achievement. The goal of this program would be to have similar achievement as regular schooling or higher achievement. If you can at least get your emergent bilinguals in this blended learning format program to achieve the same grades that they were achieving in 5 day a week school, then this program will be considered a success. And then once again, it's an open line of communication between teachers, schools, and parents. So you'll also record all parental involvement, and your goal will be to have the same level of parental involvement that you had before or a higher level. So now time for the analysis and reflection. This program does come with risk, and that is an unfortunate reality of the world we live in today. Due to COVID-19, this program does require students, families, and teachers to agree that they'll put themselves at risk. That's why this is an optional program. It is not going to be required. In order to opt in, you've got to sign a waiver saying that you will not have any kind of legal retribution against the school. And schools would have to figure out what their plan is for positive cases, for positive COVID cases. You'd have to implement some kind of protocol for testing and results and what to do if you have positive results. That would obviously reflect whatever the current science is at the time of the shutdown. So that will just have to be a school by school basis, unfortunately. There's also a risk due to the nature of the program being optional. Many students might not take advantage of the program, but my philosophy is if one student needs this program, it will have been worth it. And this program, I will say, it's a conditional program. As of now, a lot of school districts are going back in a staggered format of scheduling, and they're implementing social distancing to begin with. This program would only be on the table for schools who have to shut down again completely. Some schools are, and I say that this is a very good way to reach your emergent bilinguals. Even if your school is shut down, you can still meet safely with a small amount of students. Okay, so a little reflection on this research that I did for this advocacy paper. Basically, the crux of this issue and my advocacy for change is that many emergent bilinguals just require more support for their learning in general. And social distancing measures can allow these students to attend in-person school and receive the supports they need safely without putting themselves at too much of a risk for infection. My research for this advocacy paper also highlighted a big need in the future of English language learning programs, and it's that software and internet programs and online materials need to be in more languages than just English. Just a little personal experience. I was researching for my translanguaging unit plan in Spanish. Resources on the Mexican-American War were very hard to find. Think about that. I was doing a unit plan on the Mexican-American War, and I could not find very many Spanish language resources, especially not ones that are, Pearson, I couldn't find very many. And I really had to scrape the bottom of the barrel to find good Spanish language resources that I could use on a unit of the Mexican American War. So that's just something to think about. That is an area that really needs a lot of work in the US school system. And then a quick note on the school district that I am going to be working for. Currently, I do not work at a school district. I used to work for Plainfield, and now I don't anymore. I am currently awaiting placement for Field Experience 2, and my hope is that my future school district will have some kind of plan that makes sense in place for supporting their emergent bilingual students and trying to help them to succeed even if schools shut down again, that there will be some kind of protocol in place for them. If not, this would be a great program to put in place to support them. And here are my references for all of you who are curious. Thank you for so much for watching my presentation. And if you have any questions, just post them below. I would be happy to answer them for you.